Hi there, Erik Tait here. They asked me to put together this video of my favorite things that happened in 2020, and it's been an interesting year. Like, obviously, things are really crazy right now, but a lot of really cool stuff happened that I wanted to talk about. And I thought I'd actually start off by talking about some of the products we put out that I was really proud of and that I was really excited about. The first thing that I wanted to talk about was the Bipolar by Rand Cohen. That was really a lot of fun. A, because the gimmick is super cool, but B, if you look at that video, that's really the first time that Nick Popa, Nick Lacapo, and myself have all worked together on a project, which was really neat because we got to take a really great gimmick that was really well thought out and well designed, and then create routines. And if you know me, I prefer sleight of hand. I don't often trust gimmicks. I trust my hands more than the gimmicks. And this was a really cool gimmick to work with, and it allowed me to combine my love of sleight of hand with really astonishing visuals that I would have not been able to put together otherwise. It was a really, really great project. And there was some cool stuff that everyone else came up with. Nick Lacapo had this cool thing where he threw the card in the air and it split into two. Popa had a really cool routine where it was like it was a chameleon card. Mine was a transposition, which was a lot of fun because I got to create a transposition that I actually do out at gigs. So that was a lot of fun to put together, and I think it's well worth taking a look at that product because also you can learn to make your own. So if you don't like the cards that actually come in it, you can make your own, which is really neat. There's a really nice tutorial at the end with Seth Race on how to fix the gimmick if you have any issues with it, and then you can apply that to making your own gimmick. Something that actually happened at the end of 2019, but is a product that just came out, is Paul Vigil's CSB. His handling of the copper, silver, brass is one of my favorites. I've known Paul for a long time, and I've just seen him kill people over and over again with this particular effect. And so getting to be the cameraman who filmed that was a real highlight, but also directing it and working with Paul to take his baby and put it on film in such a way that makes it great for you guys to learn was really awesome. I think that it was really great. I get to work behind the scenes with a lot of people who come in to film downloads and helping people who've never been on film or people who are very experienced teaching on film like Paul, and just getting to work with someone who is such a luminary in our field and someone who everyone looks up to and work so closely with him producing something like that is a real honor, and it's something that I'm just like never going to forget. And that was great. Actually filming it in 2019, but then seeing the finished product, because I got to do the first pass on the tutorial and make sure that everything looked great. That was really awesome. And then a product that came out early this year that I think kind of flew under people's radar, and I'm a little happy about that because I got to kind of keep it to myself a little bit, but I think more people really should be doing this, is Roddy McGee's Flight 101. Ring flight is such a weird trick, and it has been over the years, because I've never understood why the ring would go into like a weird little wallet or the whole key fob thing. Why would it appear in car keys? Although once you start to play with Roddy's, the car keys are like a really impossible place for it to show up at. But a key fob never made sense to me, but actually appearing on the key ring, the fact that it's on the key ring, which I know is difficult to get keys on and off, just makes it that much more impossible. And being able to do it with borrowed keys is just astonishing. And sorry, my dog is barking in the background there. I'm not sure if you can hear that on the video. But what was so cool for me was that I had access to this particular product way before anyone else. The prototypes were done, the finished product was done, the packaging was done, and it was sitting sort of in our warehouse and in our studios, waiting to be released. And so all of last year and the beginning of this year, I got to play with it and go out and perform that for people over and over and over again, and just get amazing reactions. And that was it. There was a theater I worked at last year that I'd forgotten to pack a prop, and so I remember looking into my case mid-show, seeing Flight 101, and doing that effect live on stage, and it would just destroyed. It's so good. And then I'll tell you another thing that was a real highlight for me was being a part of producing Dan Harlan's Crazy Cash. So A, that thing's a miracle. B, I got some interesting emails from people like my buddy Luis Carreron over at the Chicago Magic Lounge, who was like, "Why are you guys putting that out? It's like it's been a secret for years. I've been doing this in my professional show, and Dan finally decided it was time to release it and give all the work on it. And what's really interesting is the behind the scenes on that is we had been setting up a new area to film tutorials in, and Crazy Cash is the very first download we filmed in that new tutorial area in our studio. So like the cameras are crisper, the lights are is sort of more interesting, the backdrops are dynamic. That orange backdrop, Dan's the first one on it. So being able to film like in that new space was super cool. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the Screams at Midnight demo. There's a weird thing about being on the Magic production side is that, my family sort of like knows about the competitions and the shows and things like that, but they don't really get to see like the cool demos, right? It's like, it's kind of hard to like share with your family, like, hey, look at this cool video we made for this. Cause they're just like, oh, okay, it's a cool magic trick video. But the Screams at Midnight was something that myself, Nick Popa, and Nick Lacapa worked on that came out just amazing. And I got to share it with all my friends and family, cause you don't want to share a magic trick. You don't want to share a magic, you don't want to share a demo for a magic trick that you can buy with lay people. Like, it's just not fun as a producer. But the deck of cards you totally can, because also like I got to send my dad a deck of cards and let him see it. But the video was so much fun to do because Nick Lacapo really led the creative effort on that and took this really great deck that Kevin Rayleck and Smith put together in with such beautiful stuff. And Nick like really thought out how the demo was going to look and how it was going to feel, and then he gave me and Popa instructions, and we ran wild producing the videos for that. We were in the basement of the studios, like burying decks of cards and like spraying them off with air cannons to make that cool reveal. The really neat stuff was with the smoke was a lot of fun. So we were like making the smoke cling to mirrors around it and like messing around with that, having smoke like roll out of the box. We played with, I think, 3 or 4 different types of smoke devices to do a lot of that stuff. My hands are the hands that are actually handling the cards in it. So, and Popa made it all look really great with his, just like, he's a really gifted cameraman, and all of those sweeping shots that he's doing like with his hands. So it's just, it's some really phenomenal camera work from Popa. And then the most fun was we shot practical effects in that, which I'm not sure if people picked up on. So we built a tiny little Pepper's Ghost illusion with an iPad and some glass and some sheets. And we like had ghosts and ghouls like flying and swooping in front of it. And that was just a lot of fun to do because, like, how often do you actually get to use a Pepper's Ghost illusion, let alone use it in a cool magic video? If you want to know, like, the Pepper's Ghost illusion is how they make the ghosts appear at the Haunted Mansion in Disney World. So, like, getting to, like, do that practical effect inside of that was just really neat. And then getting to share that with people was just a lot of fun. On the lecture front, I've been involved with the lectures since I came on board with Penguin. Both filming them and now I'm sort of in like a production role. And when the world turned upside down, we knew we wanted to keep producing lectures, but we wanted to produce them safely. And so changing the way the format is in the lecture now so that we can film with Dan in one room, the lecturer in another, and the crew in another room. So everyone is safe, but also being able to communicate directly was a huge technical feat for us. And the team really came together, and putting all that stuff was just phenomenal. And I think you're getting a really great product at the end of the day. Excuse me. It's just, it's awesome. We are filming with remote cameras and they're panning and tilting all while everyone is else like away and safely masked and in another room and making it look awesome. And we're able to get these incredible lectures. And the first one that jumps to mind is Jeremiah Zuo. Because even though I'm a card guy, I love coin magic. And Jeremiah's magic is not only like, it's one of the more accessible coin magic lectures that I've seen, and one of the more, and a lot of more of the accessible tricks for someone like me who's not an amazing coin magician. But also, the premises are offbeat. Some of them are absurd, and it's really like, I never thought that I would want to do a magic trick that was specifically a coin trick that was a story about bears and rutabaga farmers. It's so good. It's, we're talking about doing an award show with the streaming stuff we're doing right now, and that's one that, in my mind, like really steps up and might be one of the lectures of the year. But also, along the coin front, filming Chris Korn was really cool. So A, Chris is a phenomenal performer, but B, the cool thing about Chris is that he's released some of his work on like the 10 coin routine before, but he's never released the real routine that he actually does at his private events when he's performing for people. And it's the routine that like he put something out in the past and other like pro coin guys would be like, Chris, that's not the real thing. Like, come on, man. Like, what's the work? Like, what's the real thing? And he gave it all to us. And really to you guys is what he wanted to do, is he wanted to really finally put the definitive work out there, and getting to film that it's a huge honor because he's putting a lot of trust in us to get it right. And I think we got it right. And the Chris Korn lecture is really good. And that actually gets me thinking of something else, which is one of the most recent things that we filmed, which is not out yet as of me making this video, but is really, really cool to film. Was we filmed Farrell Dillon. And you've probably seen Farrell Dillon on Masters of Illusion. He was one of the headliners on their Vegas show. He tours all the time. He's constantly on cruise ships. And we've tried to get Farrell into the studio for a lecture on multiple occasions, and we just haven't been able to because he works all the time. And so getting him into the studio to film was insane because he's such a good magician. He's an amazing manipulator. He gives away all of the work on that. He gave away all of the work on a signature effect that he's been doing where it's like a signed bill inside of a signed card that appears in his mouth. It's nuts. We didn't think he was going to give us that, and he totally did. But more than that, even though the world is crazy and everyone is sort of going, where are my gigs right now? One of the cool things that has happened, I think, for Penguin and for Penguin customers is that we're able to get people like Chris Korn, like Farrell Dillon, like Christopher Carter, like Christian and Catalina, like Kevin Bethea, we haven't been able to get them in before because they're working. They're out there doing shows, and it makes a lot more sense for them to be on cruise ships, in theaters, headlining Vegas, doing these things and making that money. But getting them into the studio to put their work on film, get all of their thoughts down for posterity's sake, so that is on film, so the magic community has that forever, is so important. I often think of like the Penguin Archive. I'm actually the archive master here. As we film footage and use it and put it out, it has to be stored, and we save everything. And so I have access to all of these amazing videos, and thinking about the just colossal magic archive of live performances and lectures and everything that Penguin has put on film over the years it's really humbling to know that I'm inside this treasure trove of magic history, and that's really cool. And so getting to take these like real working pros sort of at the height of their powers and putting them on film like right now is just incredible. And then just also on the lecture front, I wanted to touch on my own lecture was really well received. The Penguin live act that I filmed this year was really touching how many people reached out to me and said really positive things about a number of the pieces that I put on there. In particular, two ones that jumped to my mind are Nick the Duck, which is my handling of the card duck, which essentially is just it's a really weird comedy routine that I've done at comedy clubs and comedy festivals and underground comedy shows, where it's like a magic trick, but it's really taking a children's prop and then making it play for adults. And I was a little hesitant to put it on the lecture, but a lot of people reached out and were like, that's really funny, I want to use that. And it was cool. It was really cool to have people do that. And by the same token, the same with my handling of Silk to Egg. I've had a lot of fun with that routine because it brings me a lot of joy to perform. And it's a really absurd look at Silk to Egg with, a watch appearing out of the egg, and this whole idea that performing a classic in magic is weird because classics and magic you just need to see the routine to sort of get it. And I've had fun with the routine, but I wasn't sure magicians were going to like it. And big shout out to Carissa Hendricks, who encouraged me to put it on the lecture because she saw it at the Maze convention run by Mark D'Souza. And she loved the routine, and it's one of the reasons she gave me a quote for the lecture, was that she encouraged me to put it in there because of its absurdist humor and its weird take on magic. And a lot of people reached out after it came out and were like, love that routine. Where do I get a fish? Man, that watch deal is cool. Can I do that? And it was really great. sort of experiencing that. So thanks to everyone who reached out. That was really cool. One of the really other things that I wanted to touch on about 2020 that was really neat was the podcast. I'm the host of the Penguin Magic podcast. If you want to find it, you can go to podcast.penguinmagic.com, or in any of your podcasting apps, just hunt up the Penguin Magic podcast. We come right up. We're at the top of the search there. And what's been cool about that was 2019 was the year it was born. That's where it started. That was the podcast finding its voice and figuring out what it was. 2020 has been an amazing year of growth and doing some cool things. So just like on the interview front, the interviews I've got to do this year were cool. You know, in the beginning of the year, before all of the craziness, we went to Las Vegas, and I got to film and record some amazing people. And just, you know, there's so many people to thank, but right at the top of the list was Chris Korn. You know, Chris Korn works incredibly hard as the executive producer for David Copperfield, and giving me a few minutes to come and interview him, especially about his book Totally Out of Control and the zine The Magic Man Examiner that he put out with Homer Lewag, was really cool, because those were very influential on me, and finding out the history and and putting them out and producing them was really awesome. And a further note, we recorded that in Chris's office at David Copperfield's theater, it's a very cool place. And I want to give a really special thanks to Chris Korn, or sorry, not Chris Korn, Chris Kenner. I really want to give a really big thanks to Chris Kenner for inviting me into his office, because when you come on the podcast, anytime you go on a podcast, you're giving a lot of trust to the host of that podcast to make you look good. But putting the additional trust of bringing me into his office like that was just, I'm very humbled by that, and it was really awesome. It was a very, very cool moment that I will never forget. And just following that up, the interview that I did like right after that was with Lance Burton, and I've looked up to Lance for years. His specials were a big influence on me when I was a kid, and he's just an incredible guy. And one of the awesome things about that interview is he talks a lot about how important magic clubs were to him, and magic clubs were very important and very influential on me, and I don't feel like I would be anywhere without a lot of the support that I got from the IBM and a lot of its members. And Lance in that interview talks a lot about how important it is to join these organizations and have a sense of community in magic. And that was amazing. And, you know, some of the behind the scenes stuff with the specials was really cool. But just like how down to earth and like cool Lance was, you know, hanging out with me, you know, Lance has like become like a cool friend, and I really, really appreciate that. It was just awesome. And then, you know, interviewing Banachek was neat. You know, Banachek took a lot of time to talk to me both before and after the interview that we did about a lot of different things, and that was, you know, Banachek's been a hero of mine for a long time. Before I got into card magic, I was really serious into metal bending, and talking to him about that stuff was neat. And then one of the final interviews we did on that trip to Vegas was I interviewed Jason England. And, you know, Jason's been a hero, has become a friend. He's a really super cool guy. But I reached out to Jason to see if I could do the interview. And he said, yeah, why don't you come to my house? Let me show you my private gambling museum. And one of the things you don't quite get from that interview is that Jason and I talked for literally 3 hours, with him showing me so many amazing things, sharing with me pieces from his private collection, sharing stories with me, showing me his books, you know, trading moves back and forth. It was really amazing. And I realized like, oh man, this is fun, but we need to film the interview. And the interviews are usually like 15 to 20 minutes, because I don't want to take up too much of anyone's time, but I also want to keep the podcast like nice and tight so we can keep things rolling so you guys will listen to it. And Jason and I talked for an hour looking into the amazing gambling equipment. And it's on video. It's on YouTube. You should go check it out. It's on Penguin Magic's YouTube page. Some of the really crazy, like real gaffed equipment that's been used in games to hustle people. It's wild. And I felt bad because I didn't realize how long we would talk and how much we would get along about this stuff. And I had to cut the interview a little short because I had to pack up the stuff, and I had like less than an hour to get to the Las Vegas airport and fly back to Columbus, or I'd miss my flight. And that podcast could have been 6 hours long. It was so much fun. So big thanks to Jason. And then another really neat thing that happened with the podcast was when I was in Vegas, I interviewed Stan Allen, the who used to run Magic Magazine, now runs Magic Live. And Stan took some time to point out to me that I had a platform now, and part of the responsibility of having a platform is knowing what to air, what not to air, and to find important stories and to tell those stories, and to find a unique and interesting way to tell those stories, but most importantly, tell the important stories. And I really took that to heart, and I got to do that twice this year. The first was when the COVID-19 pandemic really started to affect the world. And 2 interviews I did at the beginning of that. One was John Armstrong, who had gotten trapped onto a cruise ship with his pregnant wife because every port that they tried to land in, there were coronavirus outbreaks, and they didn't want to take the passengers off. And hearing what John went through, and also continuing to stay on the ship and perform for those people until they were able to get everyone off, is just like, John's got the biggest heart in the world, and to do that while your wife is pregnant is just, it's an incredible story that you should listen to. And the other one was the Tom Crosbie story, because Tom was trapped on a ship with an active outbreak, and the ship could not land. And hearing Tom talk about this, and also continuing to entertain these people while figuring out how to stay safe and contain the outbreak, and then how to get off the ship, and how they were resupplied by a ghost ship in the Bahamas, was just, you need to listen to Tom's interview, because Tom was also gracious enough to share that with me after he'd just gotten home. So just a wild story, fresh, which is just amazing. And thank you to both John and Tom for sharing those stories with me. And thanks to the higher-ups at Penguin, who were just totally cool with me going, these are important stories we need to tell, without any of the ad stuff, without any of the this episode brought to you by. We just were let's get this story out there. The other story that I felt was very important was the Black Lives Matter stuff. I live in Columbus, Ohio. The studios are in Columbus, Ohio, and the protests in Columbus were pretty big, and there was a lot of tension around the city. And it was really important that not just in Columbus, but all around the country and the world, something important was happening. And it occurred to me that there were a lot of stories that needed to be told, a lot of points of view that needed to happen, and conversations, more specifically conversations that were happening in the Magic community that needed to have a platform. And I sort of took stock of who I am, my background, my experiences, and I realized that getting those stories out there was important, but I might not be the one to tell them, because I might not be able to ask the right questions, but even the relevant questions. So I reached out to 2 people who I value highly as friends and colleagues, and I think that they were the best place to do this, which was Eric Jones and Rory Rennick. And I asked both of them if they would facilitate a roundtable discussion with African-American magicians in the Magic community. And Eric told me that he was actually literally in the middle of getting one of those together with the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust, and encouraged me to reach out to them. And I did, and the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust was very gracious and let me rebroadcast the audio of their live stream of this great conversation that Eric Jones facilitated. And it was a really fascinating, eye-opening discussion. And then Rory facilitated a roundtable discussion with some people in Penguin Magic, and those people very, very kindly brought me in and made me a part of the conversation, which I was not expecting, but very grateful of. And both of those conversations were really important to have. And again, no advertisements, just hey, this is an important thing. This is a conversation that needs to be had. And I'm really thankful to the team at Penguin Magic who empowered me to do that and gave me the platform to talk about these things. And as difficult and controversial as these conversations are, they're very important. And I intend to, in the future, continue to have these conversations with the podcast. And I appreciate you guys listening and supporting, and all the messages you guys send me about it. So thank you very much for that. Which brings me to the stream. Speaking of platforms, I am making this video. I know both Nick and Dan made the videos in the studio, which were great. I made the choice to make this video here from Deskatron. This is my personal broadcasting studio and editing station. This is in my home office. Big shout out to my partner for letting me transform the office into a streaming area. this is where I edit a lot of the videos that you guys see. This is where I edit the podcast you guys listen to. This is where a lot of the stuff happens. And at the beginning of sort of a lot of the craziness, myself, Nick Locapo, and Nick Popa were in the studio one night, and we were sort of talking about how the Penguin Live lectures used to be live. They used to be streamed live from the studio. And we wondered if that infrastructure was in place. And it turned out a lot of it was. It wasn't compatible with modern streaming protocols, but very early on in the beginning of the pandemic, I had started to experiment with Twitch as just kind of a hobby and just having some fun out there. Wasn't doing any virtual magic, just really doing some weird broadcasting stuff from my house on Twitch, which was a lot of fun. So I made the technology work. And the first couple of streams were rough, but we got through it. And we did this top 20 episode, this top 20 like live stream where we took a snapshot of the top 20 tricks, and then Nick and I talked about them while Popa manned all of the cameras and made sure the stream was running, which is cool. And then Locapo took the bull by the horns and really made a beautiful layout for the original streaming show that was it looked like a cross between C-SPAN and ESPN, which was it was wild and beautiful and amazing. And we started to create this very interesting show. And I was responsible for getting all of the technical elements together and putting us on Facebook and YouTube and now Twitch, which is exciting. And Nick Popa was in charge of running all of the cameras and making sure all of the things continued to move and like basically live editing the things. And Locapo was a part of the overall aesthetic and design and putting the show into a form, making it a show. And it was a lot of fun. And that has now transformed into the Cool Box Live, which we broadcast every week. And we've done it in the studio. We did it on the road a couple of weeks ago as of this taping. We figured out that we could broadcast the show in high quality from a theater in Salt Lake City, Utah that Nick and I were both working at, which was just mind-blowing that we could do that. So that we know we can do that show from anywhere, which is awesome. And now we broadcast the show from our respective homes, which is great because we are engaging with the Magic community in a really fascinating, amazing way. And just a couple of things that have happened on the stream. We have Mr. Tango on as our first live guest. That was really great. We had Juan Tamarez on one of the early shows, which is like, I'll never forget that. Talking Juan Tamarez through a Skype call and having him on our show, having him talk about verbal magic with us, perform a trick for us, and then broadcasting that to people. I was on camera with Juan Tamarez. I'll never forget that for the rest of my life. It's amazing. And then the other thing that has been interesting is hearing from you, the customers, and what you need and what you want in magic products and existing things and making them better for you. Something that happened was the Fistful of Dollars product was something that Nick and I talked about, and we didn't know that people wanted just the handling. That they kind of knew what the gimmick was, and they didn't want another one of those gimmicks because there was no reason for them to have multiple. But they knew what it was, and they wanted to learn the handling, but they didn't want to buy the gimmick. And so we went to the higher ups, and we were like, hey, can we do this? And the next morning, people were able to buy just the handling. And that was something that we could only figure out by doing this live streaming and engaging with you live. And there's a great community that's growing up around the live stream. And we're seeing people on Facebook and YouTube and now Twitch, and they're all talking to us and engaging with us. And we've got inside jokes, and people are taking on different roles that we never expected. And so we're streaming every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Please join us. We love talking to you. It's a really lively, engaging chat. And then I think I'll just end this with one of my favorite things that's happened this year was on the live stream this week. As of this taping, this is the first week of December. Nick and I were broadcasting, and it was the first time we were on Twitch. We were actually on my Twitch, twitchtv.suspiciouswizard. Suspicious, the first one is the first I is a one, but we're on there, and a non-magician came in, and they were like, "What is this?" And they were watching it, and they were watching us talk about it. And we don't really reveal methods or anything like that. We just talk about the products in kind of like a foolish way with some code words so that everyone kind of knows what we're talking about. But it was a non-magician, someone who'd never done magic before. They stumbled across the stream, And they started asking questions in the chat. What is this? What are you guys talking about? And we started to explain things to them. It was really interesting. And then they went quiet, and then they came back and they said, okay, I'm interested. Where can I get this? And we were talking about John Bannon's Bannon Triumph. A lot of people know it as the Play It Straight Triumph, but the product is the Bannon Triumph. And the person went to the Penguin website, and they bought Bannon's Triumph, and they came back and they said, I can't wait to learn this. It looks really great. And I know where that person is on Twitch. They're a broadcaster on Twitch, and so I can follow their experience. But what we experienced on the stream was someone becoming a magician for the very first time, live on the Penguin stream. They knew no magic. They became interested because of the community that they saw that is growing up around the stream, and they wanted to be a part of that community, and they took that step, and they joined our community. And that was so cool. That was, I mean, we watched the birth of a magician. How many people can say they watched the birth of a magician? And the person's internet handle is Brofar. They're a Twitch streamer. You should go check them out. We'll find out if they stick with magic. But I think that was my favorite part of 2020. Is like right on the tail end, I watched someone get interested in magic. And you always hear things about like is magic going the right direction? Is magic is magic in its golden age? Is magic dying? I don't think it is. Magic is always growing and changing, and I got to see a new magician join our community, and I am super stoked about that. And thanks so much to everybody who's helped the live stream grow. We're looking to do all kinds of great things. I miss live performing. I miss live lecturing. I miss the conventions. Hopefully next year we're going to be back at conventions. We're going to be back at live events because I have so much fun stuff to share with you guys that we have created on lockdown, and I'm very, very excited to get back to that. But also in this new weird streaming age, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do some cool stuff, and this is going to keep growing. And I can't wait to spend more time with you guys. I'm beginning to ramble at this point, so let me get out of here. But that was my favorite part of 2020 was seeing a brand new magician created. My name is Erik Tait. For everyone here at the P3 Magic Studios on the P3 Magic stream and from Penguin Magic, thanks very much. Thanks for watching. See you online. We'll see you next time.